Fawn vocalizations, how important are they to deer calling?
Well, actually, the best long-range vocalizations and the best coaxers, right up close range, both happen to be different types of maternal neonatal doe-fawn communications. The fawn distress ball that especially a young deer would give, traumatized deer, caught in a fence perhaps. Many deer sound alike, many mammals sound alike. The fawn distress ball is perhaps the best general purpose long-range deer call that I know.
How do you do that? What are you doing with your hands on your nose?
Just tonal inflections, resonance.
Like with your nose, like that?
Yeah, and it also is a place to anchor. I'm basically making a more nasal vocalization.
Okay.
Okay. And then controlling the inflections.
Bob McGuire makes it sound easy, and it really is. Some people can do this inhaling, but I found I had to exhale to make a decent fawn call. I'm just kind of whining here.
Yes, you are. That's a bleat. Although a lot of people think of it as a bleat. That's an older deer bleat that I just did. A whitetail young fawn bleat. It's just a mewing sound, and it's a low level of insistence. If it's a sound that a fawn might get if it wakes up, rises, looks around, "Hey, Ma, where are you?" If then
how does that sound? I mean,
that sounds good. It does.
I mean, it would work maybe?
Oh yeah. That absolutely. You're exhaling?
No, I could try it inhaling.
No, you were exhaling.
I choke.
Well, yeah, it's a different technique entirely.
Yeah, I can't do that one.
If you want to do a slightly more insistent call, the vocalization is called a mew, and it's as if a fawn arises and then looks around and says, "Where are you? Damn it," or something more emphatic. And the difference in the sound is a raised inflection on the tail end of the same mewing type vocalization. Yeah. The mewing that you're doing before is real good.
Not real good.
Not real good?
No, it is. It sounds good. That's a good vocalization. You can coax deer in. And I have had occasion, one time at the Game Tracker 10s or Better camp, I had a young man in a tree stand above me who had never harvested a whitetail before with a bow. And a deer came in to the... immediately got to within 30 yards and started closing. The angle then was changing between the bow hunter and the caller, me, the caller on the ground, and this nervous bow hunter up in the tree stand initially thinking, oh, when the deer is broadside, he can drill it. And then, well, you know, first-time bow hunters, myself included, many things happen, and they all seem to. Eventually, the deer got into position to where I was almost lined up with the arrow. And I was really concerned, so I changed the vocalization somewhat. That really happened.
Shoot the deer?
Yes, please shoot the deer.
How did that affect the deer?
It didn't. The general vocalization was the same, actually.
So
I think you can actually say words inside vocalizations and get by with it. You don't have to come close. You have to have a general rhythm and a general sound, but all deer sound alike. And the notion that the older bucks, for instance, would have a deeper grunt is not true. Some of the oldest, largest bucks that I've filmed and recorded the vocalizations have tending grunts similar to an antelope, a high creaky grunt.
Now that isn't very loud.
No, it isn't. It's difficult to carry. Some of the manufactured calls carry better, but what I like to do if I'm calling a buck and I can see him and know that he's alone, or else if I can't see, unless I know that the buck is in the presence of other deer, I do soft calling. And then progressively, these short calls, maybe 2 or 3 tending grunts, I make them louder until I believe that the animal heard me. Then I shut up. If 2 deer encounter each other and one wishes to displace the other deer, perhaps at a favorite food time, Well, no, initially the low level, the high level, yes, is the only time that I've ever witnessed it other than of caged deer directing the grunt-sniff-wheeze toward a human. That doesn't count. Whenever it's been a deer-deer communication, it's been just prior to fight, and I've only witnessed bucks giving the vocalization.
This is something they would use, like, get out of the way, move back.
No,
Like that? No?
Those are the low levels.
Oh.
The get out of the way might be a head threat accompanied with a single low grunt. Sounds like a maternal grunt, or they call it a low grunt. That's a displacement type, low level of agonistic vocalization. If the subordinate does not move and it escalates, perhaps with an associated foreleg kick, it's called a grunt sniff. It's a grunt, the same low grunt, followed, yeah. And then, normally the highest level agonistic vocalization is those, it combines the grunt with a sniff snort, followed by a prolonged wheeze. And I don't normally hear it building up all the way to a class 3 agonistic encounter. Normally, if they meet each other, it's suddenly both bucks believe themselves dominant and are both willing to kill or be killed. It's a highest level of aggression. And again, I make the sound by placing my lower teeth against the upper jaw, and you spray a little spit. You exhale
Like that. Now that will, how is that useful to a hunter? How would you ever use that?
When you're going for broke. If you're in an area that suddenly picks up scraping activity, there's a good chance, the intense scraping indicates that there's probably a doe about to come into heat in that area, and unless he's already picked up that doe, the buck seems to favor it, may in fact tolerate your presence climbing the tree stand. You may not know that a buck's been there, well aware of your presence. And there have been occasions that I believe a buck has been hidden nearby, or perhaps we know he has, and hours after we have arrived, perhaps we're getting ready to go, perhaps the light's finally right, we give that grunt sniff wheeze, and it's a going for broke vocalization.
So that buck may come right in then.
It'll be immediate, the response, I guarantee you. You'll flush every deer out of the woods but one. And that one buck, right. Lester, yeah.
What about the, you've talked about this 5-minute rule, which hit home with me. The 5-minute rule being, if you say, I'm going to stop hunting at 10 o'clock, when it gets to be 11 o'clock, you say 5 more minutes. And then you crawl down from the tree stand, leave your blind, and right away you spook that deer that you've been waiting for.
The one you meet him head on.
So what should you do before leaving the blind?
I like to give the contact call. It's a vocalization that whitetail use to maintain a mutual awareness of each other's location. A lot of times they form friendships and they follow along together. They'll feed together. If one feeds away, the one that's left behind might raise its head and say, "Where are you?" I teach people reassure. You kind of make a variation of that sound.
Like something like that?
That's good. That's good.
That'll work.
And if you give that from your tree stand, it's not a continuous dialogue that might be established. It's a single response. And I've had hunters following the show. When I come back the next year, they'll come up to me and tell me their experiences where they finally decided to try it where it counted. A lot of people are afraid to use vocalizations at a good hunting
you
spot.
feel kind of funny.
Yeah.
But if you give that reassure type of thing, and you might get a response.
Yeah, you might get a response. And if you don't, what have you lost?
Yeah.
You're about to get out anyhow.
Yeah.
And especially the instance that I gave before, when a buck suddenly intensely scrapes in your area and you're hunting that area, give the grunt sniff wheeze. Go for broke. You're about to leave the stand anyhow. You're going to spook the deer off. Give the grunt sniff wheeze, and you might just attract that deer. Either way, you'll know quickly whether you should get out of your tree.
If you're still skeptical that deer calling works, there were 44 hunters who bagged trophy bucks for our hunting awards program last year, and they said they were calling or rattling them in.